Hello everyone, my name is Jared Rafson. Today I'm going to be talking about the Week 11 reading for communications. I'm going to start with reading pop culture reading. We had 4 articles this week, the first of which was Wall of Sound, The iPod Has Changed the Way We Listen to Music by Nikhil Saval. This was all about how modern music devices kind of isolate people, and like the isolation that like music devices such as the iPod and modern phones provide is isolating people from one another. The author made the point that the invention of recorded music, specifically the gramophone, changed the way music would be listened to forever. Because before recording technology, music was a social thing. You had to go out and hear music live, and so the invention of recorded music allowed people to sit back and listen to music in private. And this, over 100 years, eventually progressed into modern music devices like the iPod and music on phones. And but the ability to kind of like put in your headphones and shut yourself off is resulting in people to become less active and outspoken. It's almost like music is drowning out people's voices. And using music to drown everything out and create silence is severing human connection. I thought that was a really interesting point that he made. The next article was The Judgment of Thamus by Neil Postman. This article was about technophiles, which are people who are far too enthusiastic about new technology. They see only what new technology can do, and rather than what it's going to undo in society. This is really common nowadays. I think like a good example would be self-driving cars. People are obsessed with the self-driving car concept these days, and like they're really excited about not having to drive their own cars, and they're already testing it out. But there's a glaring problem with this. Like having human drivers and machine drivers on the same road is going to result in accidents because a robot is just going to drive better. Or it's going to drive, not better, but it's going to drive differently than a human would. Humans, like, they'll, like, roll through yellows, they'll go over the speed limit. A machine is going to follow, like, the road rules to the T, and this clash of human driving and robot driving could result in accidents. So I think, like, the self-driving car may not be the best idea. But ultimately his point was that the implementation of new technology has a profound effect on society with both positive and negative results, and we need to think about both before we implement said technology. Next article was Gin, Television, and Social Surplus by Clay Shirky. And he made the point in this article that every generation has a piece of technology or an innovation that really defines them. That's like the pinnacle of their whole spiel. It's an invention that really defines that generation. And he made the point that the invention for the 20th century was the sitcom, which acted as kind of a social lubricant for the wheels of society. I thought that was a really cool point that he made. I thought that was a really cool point because it like popularized TV and stuff. He also talked about the concept of cognitive surplus, which is intellectual free time that humans spend collaborating and thinking together, and it's very productive. And he actually made the point that this concept resulted in one of the best, most useful tools of the 21st century, Wikipedia, the online blog, or not the online blog, the online encyclopedia, excuse me. But it's very useful, and it was created as a result of people coming together and putting their heads together in their free time, which I thought was an interesting point. The last article was from Reading Pop Culture was Love the One You're Near by Jennifer Blyer. And this was all about dating apps. She talked about how the advent of the smartphone resulted in the creation of these dating apps where you can swipe yes or no on people and meet people online, and you can chat with people online before you even meet them in person. But this begs the question, there's pros and cons to this. Some people think that interacting through a screen results in superficial interactions and cold human interactions, and they ask, like, can you really find love through an app and through a screen? Some people defend online dating, saying that online interaction helps two people find out if they're compatible with each other before they even meet, so you don't waste time, essentially. But whether they're good or not, dating apps are here to stay. They're everywhere. Now I'm going to talk about the rhetorical act reading, and this was Chapter 8, Challenges Arising from the Audience. The audience to a speaker plays an essential part in whether or not the speaker's rhetoric is effective. The audience can provide obstacles to a speaker and the point they are trying to make, which makes them very important. The rhetoric has to figure out how he's going to be most effective with the audience. Some of the obstacles an audience can provide is the audience can be very diverse with different backgrounds and different interests. The audience can also have different levels of education and different belief systems if they're religious. The audience can also have different levels of understanding on the topic being spoken about. So the speaker has to plan all of this out and then map around and create a map of how he's going to get all around all of these obstacles and navigate the diverse audience, because audiences are always diverse, and that's what makes a really effective speaker. The chapter talked about how there were 4 different types of audience, that you can group the audience into 4 different classifications. The first was empirical audience, which are the people who are first exposed to your rhetoric, who, hear your speech or read your article. The next was the target audience, which is like the people you are really trying to reach with your rhetoric, whether it's writing or in person. These are like, this is what you're going for. You're trying to convince these people. That's your target audience. They're who you're trying to reach. The next are the agents of change, which are the people in the audience who have the capacity to like fulfill your wish or fulfill what you want or what you're trying to convince people about. So like, this is like, if you're trying to sell a product, that would be the people who could afford your product or could provide a service for you. So they're VIPs. They're the VIP members of the audience. Last would be the created audience, which are people who are influenced or empowered or inspired by your speech. And that's how you get followers. There's also some challenges. It's been a long day. The chapter also talked about audience-related challenges. There were 4 different ones, which was inattention, which is when the audience is distracted or fails to be captivated by your rhetoric, if you're not very convincing or you kind of drone on and on. There's misperception, when people misunderstand your point. And this could be because of different attitudes or beliefs, kind of like screens that allow people to hear your speech or hear your rhetoric and get kind of a warped view of it. The third was lack of motivation, where the audience doesn't feel entirely convinced or motivated by your rhetoric. It may go against their values, and they're just kind of sitting there, they're not quite convinced yet. And then last one was inertia, which is when the audience may feel powerless and fail to act as a result of this, or the audience may be stubborn and reluctant to change. They're not entirely convinced by your rhetoric. They're just like, yeah, whatever. I don't really like that change. I don't really like change. And so you have to find a way around that. And so navigating the audience is really what makes a good public speaker and a good convincing argument. And that's what really makes rhetoric. And I thought that was an interesting point in this chapter. Thank you.